Hey, what's up guys? I'm Gordon Briley, and today what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to assemble your new rack, your pulley system. They all basically assemble the same way. It's really simple, and that's kind of the beauty of it, is we wanted something that was not only ultra dynamic but easy to set up. And today what I'm going to show, there's several different ways that you could mount this to the wall. One being using 1x. So you would do 1x all the way across, as long as it extends past 4 feet. And then you would do it top and bottom. But a much more effective way, and you're gonna see that with our products, you can add a lot of different pieces in different area, whether it be a weight plate holder to the wall. So having a solid surface that you can attach to me makes a lot more sense. It's going to cost a little bit more, but in the grand scheme of things, it's well worth it. So what I bought was a 3/4 piece of plywood. You're going to want something that's very secure and that you can bolt to the wall. And technically, I should probably say that you should contact a contractor or a professional as far as how many bolts you use, that kind of stuff. But that's just obvious liability stuff. But what I say is screw the shit out of it. Bolts, lots of screws. It doesn't hurt to be a little bit safer than kind of taking it easy on that stuff. So bolt it, screw it, as many places as you can. And make sure this part's really secure, because your rack is actually going to fasten directly to this. So again, 3/4 4x8 sheet, and I am actually going to paint this just how it is. Paint it first, that way when I put it up, it'll just be touch up where the bolts are. So we're going to move on to the next step. So first thing I wanted to go over how to actually attach it just using 1x. I like 1x8 or 1x10. Again, it's more surface area to attach more bolts. So I'm just going to demonstrate how I did it on this rack system. So if you want it to be a little more affordable, maybe give it a little design element, which I did here. This is one way to do it and save some money, and it still should work just fine. So again, 1x8, 1x10, I can't remember exactly what this was, but you get the point. So I bolt it into a stud, into studs, and I think this may be the last stud here, or actually it bolts into a stud here. And then you have your actual lag screws that go into this. So now you have a solid mounting surface, because this may start on a stud, but it's not necessarily going to end on a stud. Otherwise, it would be nice and simple to attach this, but the width of a rack doesn't match up with the 48 inches that studs would be placed at. So that's why you need a solid surface to attach to. And I put some runners going down because I knew that I was going to do weight plate holders. And again, it just frames it in. So lots of bolts into the studs. Anywhere that you can. I would prefer, or I would suggest 2 to 3. You're going to have to drill a pilot hole, or you will likely split this. And you will probably want to use at least 3-inch lag bolts that are going to go through the 1-inch, the 1x, and then into the stud at least 2 to 3 inches. So those are something that you're going to actually have to get yourself. That's one thing we don't give you guys because of liability reasons. So I do a piece on the top, a piece on the bottom to attach to. Same thing on the bottom, screwed into the studs wherever possible, 2 to 3 bolts. And then you can attach your bottom rails and your top rails where they're supposed to be, and I will be giving you guys all the information and measurements on that. But this is just a general idea of how to attach it. It's nice and affordable. I painted all my stuff ahead of time, and again, you have to drill those pilot holes. So We're going to move on to the next. So now after my paint has dried on my 3/4 inch plywood, I'm going to start to fasten this to the wall with these 3-inch star bit lag screws. These ones I really like. They don't have the hex screw part that actually sticks out, so they'll sit flat. I actually decided to put this on a wall that's going to be more difficult than if you just had a stud wall. I purposely picked a spot that had something that was in the way, just to show, because this is going to be in a lot of people's home gyms and garages, and you have an obstacle, you just have to adapt and overcome. So I purposely put this somewhere that's a little more challenging, just to show that this pretty much can go anywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and secure this to the wall just like you'll have to. If you have a stud wall, every 16 inches will be the studs. Unless you're in a garage, it may be 2 feet. But you're going to want to put lots of different screws into this, whether they be these star bit lag screws or an actual lag bolt or a combination of them. But you want to make sure it's really secured very well. And this is a pole barn style building, and it has purloins which actually go this way rather than going this way. So I'm going to attach at each point, it should be on 2-foot centers. Each spot that there's a purloin going here, I'm going to put several of these bolts in it, and then this will be secured to the wall. If you have stud walls, then you're just going to go vertical this way, securing it. Again, you'll have to get recommendations by a professional on how you should attach this, again, for liability reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and start attaching this, and we'll move on to the next step after that. So now that we have this secured to the wall, I used, again, a combination of lag screws, and then I used some standard deck screws in between to make sure that this was really secured to the wall. But now, for me personally, I'm a little OCD. I want my things to look well, look good, and function well. So I'm actually going to paint over the screws so they blend in. That's up to you. Alright, so now that we have the plywood up and attached to the wall, we're actually going to start building the rack. And we're going to go over this in detail. So we're going to start with the first rail and show you how we're going to begin the process and teach you about some of the basics about assembling these racks. So the first thing we're going to do is find the rail. It's going to be slotted, plain, no holes. We have several different rail types, 3-hole and 4-hole. But this one is just the plain one. This is going to be how far away from the wall that your rack actually sits. So it's either going to be 9 inches or 30 inches or 43 inches away from the wall, plus the upright. So first thing is to find this piece, and we're going to start to build from the ground up. So let's go over what tools you'll need to assemble the rack. So you can use several different things. I have a 3/4 wrench. One has a ratcheting. This makes it really easy. So having 2 of these. An actual impact drill. This makes it very simple, very fast, but I find when you use this, you tend to scar up the bolts and the washers and things like that. So it makes it really, really fast, but again, depending on your thoughts on how you want it to look, you can use this or decide not to. Same thing, 9/16, I have 2 of them, or crescent wrench. So for this main part, getting the rack going, these are the tools that you're basically going to need. And for now, that's all we got to concentrate on. And then we're going to start assembling the first pieces with these tools. So now that we have the tools out of the way, now we're going to go to some of the hardware. So we're going to go through different fittings and then different nuts. So this one here is a 1/2 inch by 1 inch. This is one of the fittings that you'll be using. We also have a 4-hole fitting that we'll go over. That actually assembles at the top, but we're working on the bottom right now. We're gonna start getting ready to attach the bottom rail to the actual plywood. And the whole system is kind of based on really simple fittings and bolts. You're going to use those throughout the entire rack. And once you get going with this and see how easy it is, you'll get the hang of it and you guys will fly through this. So again, these nuts, there's either 3/8 that you may use for different pieces or 1/2 inch. So this is going to be for the 1/2 inch bolts, the blue is. And it's really simple. So this rail, the bottom rail that we've discovered earlier, you just take it, put it in here, twist it, and now it's ready to go. So now we have the fitting. The bottom rails are going to get the 2-hole fittings, and you'll see that one side says made in the USA. This side is always going to go down. So this side is a little bit longer, this side is a little bit shorter. The made in the USA, and we'll just keep going over this. We'll be a little bit repetitive, but it's in the end it'll just make it easier for you. So this is going to be the part that attaches to the wall. And if you see my hardware, it's a little beat up. This is some of my demo racks, and I've taken this apart again and again and again. So you guys will be brand new. So we're going to take this 1/2 inch bolt by 1 inch and a washer. They're the bigger washers. There's 3/8 washers and these bigger ones. So washer first, and now it's just going to screw into that nut, and it's actually just going to assemble these fittings to the rail system. And that's the beauty of it. It's so very simple. And this is going to attach to the wall. Like so. This is the bottom rail again. Now we just take our 3/4 wrench. Again, I like using the ratcheting hand wrench. Actually put it here, try to give you guys a better look at it. Find out which way the wrench ratchets. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And naturally, these will want to kind of spin on you a bit. You just got to hold them. Sometimes I'll actually turn them a little bit to the opposite direction. Tighten them down. And eventually, you're just going to pull it right back to center. And that's going to attach right to the wall. Your lag bolt is now going to go through here and fasten that. And then there's going to be other hardware that is on this bottom rail, but we're going to go by it piece by piece. So this is the first step, is actually attaching this fitting with the 1 inch by 1/2 inch hardware. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We just did the one rail, and now we're just moving over, and we're attaching in the same way, 1/2 inch nut with the bolt, smaller fitting. And then made in the USA is facing down. So now that we have both fittings, 90-degree fittings with 2 holes, actually assembled to the rail, now we're actually going to determine how far apart they need to be. And this is really simple. So the cross rail, this is actually the top piece. It has the end cap on it. It's going to be probably the only piece that has that end cap. Now determined by the width. So some racks, let's say the pulley rack, the 30-inch wide version. So that is going to have a slightly smaller rail. But this is a full-size rack. So this has the 43.25-inch rail. So you're going to find whatever piece is going to be used for the top piece that has the end caps. And this is what we're going to use to actually determine our width at which to screw these and fasten them to the wall. So now that we have this set here, so now we can simply just make a mark on the wall, center, So if you have 1x, that's where you're actually going to drill your pilot hole. One little trick or tip that I would do is give this a little bit of slack. Don't put it right tight up to it, just leave a little 1/8 inch of slack. Go right in the center, put a dot, and that's where you're going to drill your pilot hole. Or for these, using these 3/8 bolts, 3/8 washer, and with this, I'm actually going to attach it with my impact gun with a 9/16 bit. And for plywood, most of the time, it's probably not going to split. So I actually don't even use a drill bit for pilot holes. So I'm just actually going to attach this right to the wall. Get that piece nice and tight. And then we'll move over to the other side. Make sure that I have a little bit of a gap just off the side of this plastic here. And then I'm going to actually attach this one to the wall. Need to get these ones real tight. So now we have our distance apart. This was really, really simple. Now if you have actual studs going up and down, you may want to set one of these edges into one of the studs, especially if you have 1x or plywood. You want to make sure that if you can, start one of these rails into a stud. The other one may not land exactly on a stud, but that's okay if you have a solid surface to actually fasten to. Okay, so on to the next step. So what we're going to do is get ready to get this 90-degree 4-hole onto the wall in the right place. So your stringers or the rail system that's going to come across here that attaches to the upright, we need to have this in the right place. We want to have a nice level or plumb rack. So what we're going to do is actually use the upright to find the proper location to mount this 90-degree fitting. Again, made in the USA. We're going to go down with that. This part is going to be up. Well, how we're going to do this is to take our upright, and it's against the rail that we just installed. You could go inside or outside. I'm going to the inside. You want to make sure that it is plumb. You're going to count down 1, 2 holes, and then make a mark dead center in those holes. And that's where you're going to mount this next fitting. What you're going to have to do is transfer it over to match up with this rail down here, and that's going to be simple. All we're going to do is measure the distance from the edge of the plywood to the actual lag bolt that we put here. And if we mount that fitting, made in USA down, if we mount this in the same place, same distance away, it should be right where we need it. So that's going to be nice and simple to get this next piece going, and this is going to be assembled in no time. So go ahead, install your lag bolt. I, for now, just put one in and get this going. If you can be able to move it around, pivot it, that's great. It'll probably help you in the end, but we're going to make sure that we have all of our lag bolts securing this to the wall. So on my rack, from the edge to the lag bolt was 1 3/4, 1 inch 3/4. So I'm going to just take this 1 inch, 3/4. And just like that, I was actually really, really close. Just got lucky. But now I'm actually going to take that fitting, dead center, 1.75" by also the mark that I made, and we're going to install that fitting right there. So what I'm going to do is take another one of the lags that's provided. Now these aren't for securing the plywood to the wall, these are for securing the rack to the plywood. So taking this 3/8 with the washer on it, I'm actually going to run it into the plywood first to have my hole already there. Now that I have my hole, made in the USA down, I'm going to go top hole into the fitting, and I'm just going to now this is going to be at the right height. The rail is going to go across and attach to the upright. We're going to move on to that step after we actually put the other fitting on the other side, just repeating the process. Next step is we're actually going to install the next rail that is going to match the one down low, and it's actually going to connect to the upright. Again, we're doing the same thing. By now you should be getting the hang of how these all work. Again, 1/2" nuts flush to the end. That way when you put it up there, it's going to be right in the right spot. That one, the next one butts to it. There's 2 here. This is to make sure it's ultra secure at the top. This piece is whatever the length away, so the low pro, the mid-size, or the longer rack, the mega rack, just going to determine what piece you're actually grabbing. And you can purchase this instead of being the slotted with no holes. You can actually purchase the holes, and you can hang a lot of different stuff from these. It's a little more expensive, but it is pretty cool to have. But it's up to you. This is one way to do it, the most affordable way. But you can always kind of pimp out your rack system. So we're going to actually start to install this. Pretty simple. Rail goes up, nuts go on, bolt goes in, tighten it up. For these, I just hand tighten. Again, these should be lined right up. Sometimes you have to just kind of move them a little bit. Get those threads in the right place. Hand tighten. You can see the rail is actually just hanging there. No problem at all. And that piece is on. We're moving right through this assembly, and it doesn't get much easier than this. So this piece is ready. We're just going to go over, do the exact same thing on this one. Grab the rail, put the nuts in, have those ready, have them in your hands. Washer, nut, washer. And get ready to move on to the next one. See? All right, now it's time to put on the fitting. Again, it will be a 4-hole 90-degree fitting. Same thing, 1/2" nuts. All we're gonna do is put it in, or these, you can just slide them in, since that end is exposed. Put it in, sideways, slide them right in there, flush it to the end. Grab washer and bolt. By now it should be getting pretty repetitive because it's the same process. That's the awesome part. Made in the USA is going to go down. It is facing this end towards the outside. Same process. Make sure it's flush to the end. Bolt washer, same bolts. 1 inch and a 1/2" washer. It's so easy. fitting. Slide it in, flush it up right to the end of the tab of the nut. Bolts in, flush it up right to the end. The back side of this is flush to the end of this. Just hand tighten for now. If you wanted, you could go back and tighten these up some. They grip really well, so usually not a problem whatsoever. So right now I can move it around, it's not secured, but we'll go back and do that. Okay, now the fittings are on here. I'm just going to go ahead and snug these up some. I don't like to tighten everything down to the very end. Just want to make sure that these can't ever come out. Give them a little snug. And then we're going to move on to the next part. Okay, now that the fittings are on, top and bottom, now what we're going to do is actually start to put our tower inside of the upright. So this has all of the holes. They are 30 inches long, and these are going to go inside the upright. The direction does matter. For now it doesn't because this isn't attached yet. What we're going to do is take the upright, and these are telescoping. What we're going to do is put this inside. It goes right inside the upright. You're going to slide it down, and this is where you have a lot of adjustability, is how high do you want your tower to be? How high do you want your squat rack? Do you want to be able to do pull-ups if you're really tall? Then all we need to make sure is that you have at least, I like 3 holes inside. So here, and then you can get real tall with this. But if you decide you want it shorter, you just telescope it and then find the ideal height for you. So we've got to get these holes to line up perfect. And then what we're going to do is once you have that lined up, pick the height that you want. I like it to be the top hole just above my reach, for me personally. But you have the ability to customize it to whatever you like. So the one thing we need to make sure is this is an open rail. We need to make sure that that open side is facing in, because that's where our top rail is going to fasten to. So now that I have this inserted, I have the holes matching up. I'm going to go second hole down, 1, 2. Put in that 3/8 bolt with the washer on this side. Put the washer on the back side. Tighten the nut. Put that on. Grab another one. Here. Third hole down. Washer on the back side. Washer on the front side. Lock nut. Okay, snug them up. And then same thing on the other side. I currently have this one already set up, but I'm going to grab my other 3 holes. So it's got an open side here. That's going to face inwards. I'm going to pull this out. You might have to count the holes to make sure that you're the same on both sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for me. 10 exposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up. 9/16 wrench. Want to make sure they're centered, and the other important part is to make sure that this hole, that the inside telescoping piece is lined up perfect too. And then once you get that, tighten it up. Get both of them tight. And then these ones we do not want to over secure. They will compress this metal. So you get them nice and tight, but you should be able to tell, okay, that's probably tight enough because you can feel it. So don't over tighten these ones, don't compress this metal, but make sure they're nice and snug still. So right now I don't have it secured in the back still. I'm going to go through at the end. So now that we have the telescoping pieces in, we're going to be able to assemble the tower piece. Make sure everything's squared up and centered. Snug it up. Make sure that gap is closed. Okay, so now we can move on to the next part, which will be putting our rail So the next part will be putting our rail across the top. And it's much like everything else that we've done. It's going to be using the same components. It's making sure this is going to be a 90-degree 2-hole. The top piece doesn't need a 4-hole. So 2 holes on the rail. This rail has, it's slotted, and this is the piece that has the plastic ends on it. This plastic ends are essentially a spacer because this part at the upright is a little bit wider, and then it steps in, so that fills that gap. So that's why you want to make sure that you have the piece with the plastic ends. And so now we're going to make sure that we have fittings on both ends. So we're going to make sure, put this fitting on. Okay, so again, Made in the USA is facing down. So the longer portion is down. It's flush to the end. So it's going to be flush to the plastic piece here, in this case. And then you're going to tighten these up. Both ends are going to have the 90-degree fitting, flush to the outside. You don't have to really secure them right now. But next, we're going to fasten this up here. So time to grab a ladder, or a footstool, or a bench. Okay, so now we're going to assemble this piece. It's really just more of the same. Got our nut. That's going to go into the channel section. I'm going to put one on the other side. And then again, we have another 1/2-inch bolt, 1 inch, just like you did before on the major components. So we're going to get this up here. First of all, we're going to put in our, you slide these right on the end, flush it up there. Same thing here. Flush. I already have these fittings installed. So now washer, bolt, and then this one's actually going to go down a little bit. I'm able to assemble this, as you see, all by myself, which is great, not having to rely on anyone else. So this one actually slides down. You can pull this one forward, and then again, just getting that bolt in there. Now I'm going to hand tighten. Hand tighten. Grab my 1/2-inch wrench, 3/4 inch wrench. I'm not going to be able to use the socket end, the ratcheting end, but now I'm going to get this. I'm going to pull this real tight, make sure there's no gap here, and then we're going to get this one. This is going to be kind of the start of actually tightening our bolts down. So this one, I'm going to hold it still so it doesn't want to spin, and then I'm really going to get these ones tight, about as tight as I can get them. So the other side, same thing. Make sure it's flush at the top, and then tighten it down. As tight as you can get it. Make sure it doesn't twist. Sometimes I'll do what I did before. I'll spin it, make sure the gap is closed. This one's actually open a little bit. Close the gap. And then as I tighten it, normally it'll turn right into its position, and I'll hold it and really give it some torque. So these are really tight, all of these. You don't want to miss out on these. Make sure you go through this whole rack system and tighten everything down really tight. So if you have the Mega Rack, it comes with the stabilizing center bar. So this is super easy to install. You can see right here, like you've done earlier, you just put your 1/2-inch rail nut, one on the inside here, and then one here, 1-inch bolt by 1/2 inch, washer, same thing over here. If this is too tight for some reason to fit in between here, you can always loosen these up a bit and bump them over. That's why they're 3/8. So it has a little bit of play, and then tighten them back up once this is in here. So same thing on the other side. You can move it in or out depending on what accessories you might have, stuff like that, what you think offers the most stability. But this is just a crossbar, obviously, to link all these together. So just get this installed last, and that should stabilize it. And at that point, you've now built your rack with the tower, and we can see if you actually have purchase, or in the future you purchase add-ons. So I'm going to be building a double pulley off of this tower, and I'll have a separate video showing how to do that in case you guys purchase that. But now it's time to go through and secure all the bolts down. Going through every single one. Maybe do it multiple times just to check. You want to make sure that all these bolts are absolutely secure. And then what you're going to do with this rail system, so you're going to bolt down the bottom piece just the same as the top. So simple. That was with our 3/8 bolt, 2 3/4 long, same as you did up top. And we're just going to tighten these down, open-ended wrench for this one. down. Make sure that it's centered. And then I also like to put some pressure on it downwards and then tighten it up. Again, don't over tighten these ones. So the next thing you'd want to do is you want to get these squared up. If you use rubber floor, it's going to be much stickier, and this rail will stick to it pretty good. And the next level of security that would be great, and I recommend this for every single rack, is to actually take a Tapcon, a drill holes, and then put a concrete anchor through these slots. This all rail has slots in it, so you have lots of spaces and opportunity to actually fasten it to the ground. So that's, I think, kind of a must-do with the rubber. Like I said, that helps to keep it secured. So having both is kind of an ideal situation. Rubber and then drill, Tapcon, 2 to 3 places throughout here, depending on the size of the rack that you have. Low pro rack, you're probably only going to get 1 or 2. A mega rack, you're definitely going to get 3. So make sure that's secured. But before you bolt it down, make sure that you have your distance, the same distance, the top rail, this distance back here, make sure those are the same, and then fasten this down to the ground. So you want to make sure everything's square, and that'll really help out if you're putting on accessories, speed bar, the pulley systems, things like that. So just make sure you're always kind of double checking measurements. And as you can see so far, we pretty much have gotten to the end, besides tightening bolts down, and it's really, really simple. I did it by myself. It doesn't take very long at all. And if you have to pick it up and move it, it's no big deal. So I've taken them down probably 30 different times and it doesn't bother me at all. So for now, what I want you guys to do is, if you do have questions, go onto our Facebook page, the PhenoX Nutrition, Fitness and Nutrition page, and that's a great place to ask questions. So anyone that may have similar questions can look on there and maybe find the answers they're looking for. And you know, if you can't figure something out, which it shouldn't be very difficult, we can get those answers to you. So thanks for watching. Pretty much all that's left to do is put your J hooks on and get to squatting and bench pressing and doing all the fun things that you bought this rack for. So enjoy, guys.